I stared at my phone screen, my thumb hovering over the comment button beneath Romina's Instagram post. The photo showed her at some upscale bar in Manhattan, surrounded by what looked like finance bros in expensive suits, all of them holding champagne flutes. But it wasn't the image that made my blood run cold. It was the caption, and more specifically, the part where she'd tagged my wife, Thessaly. Another amazing night with the real movers and shakers of Noisy. So grateful to be surrounded by people who are actually going places. Not everyone can say the same. Some of us are brave enough to reach for the stars, while others settle for mediocrity. Thessaly reads, "Girl, you know I love you. But when are you going to stop wasting your prime years on a nobody? Life's too short to play it safe with someone who peaked in college. You deserve a real man with real ambition, just saying what your real friends are thinking. No filter. Real talk." Sorry, not sorry. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Pure, unadulterated rage. The post had been up for 47 minutes and already had 236 likes. I could see the comments rolling in, a mix of laughing emojis, fire emojis, and enabling messages from Romina's circle of shallow acquaintances. "You tell her, Queen." "So true, bestie. She needs to hear this." But what really twisted the knife was that Thessaly had seen it. I knew she had because her phone had been buzzing non-stop for the past 20 minutes while she was in the shower, and when I glanced at her screen on the bathroom counter, I saw Romina's name attached to dozens of Instagram notifications. Message after message from their other coworkers, probably sending her screenshots, probably asking if she was okay, probably stirring up drama like vultures circling fresh roadkill. I thought about all the times Thessaly had defended Romina to me. All the times she'd said I was being too harsh when I pointed out how toxic and condescending her coworker was. All the times she'd insisted that Romina was just confident and actually really sweet once you get to know her. Well, I knew her now. I knew exactly what kind of person she was. My finger moved toward the comment box, and I felt a strange calm wash over me. I'd spent years keeping a low profile, avoiding the spotlight, living a quiet life that I genuinely loved. But some things, some disrespects, some lines crossed, required a response. I tapped the comment button and watched as my verified account name appeared in the text box, the little blue checkmark sitting there like a loaded gun. This was going to change everything. Everything. But as I started typing, I realized I didn't care anymore. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this story doesn't start with social media drama. It starts 3 years earlier, on a rainy October evening in Brooklyn, at a bookstore that smelled like old paper and possibilities. I'd gone to the reading because my agent, Portia, had insisted I get out and support other authors, instead of being a hermit in my Williamsburg apartment. The author that night was some debut novelist I'd never heard of, and honestly, I wasn't paying much attention to the actual reading. I was too busy people-watching and wondering if I could sneak out early without Portia finding out. That's when I saw Thessaly. She was sitting in the front row, completely absorbed in the reading, and every so often she'd jot something down in a small notebook on her lap. She had this way of tilting her head when she was really concentrating, and her dark hair kept falling across her face, which she'd absently tuck behind her ear without breaking her focus. There was something magnetic about someone so genuinely engaged with art, so present in the moment. After the reading, during the Q&A, she asked the most insightful question I'd heard in months about the author's use of unreliable narration. The author actually paused, looking impressed, before giving a thoughtful answer. When the event ended and people milled around the wine and cheese table, I found myself gravitating toward her. "That was a great question," I said, suddenly feeling like an awkward teenager instead of a 32-year-old man. She looked up at me with these incredibly warm hazel eyes and smiled. Thanks. I'm a sucker for unreliable narrators. They're the most honest liars in literature. We talked for 2 hours. Not about me, not about my work, just about books and Brooklyn and life. She told me she worked in marketing at a publishing house, that she'd moved to New York from Portland 3 years ago, that she'd always dreamed of living in a city where bookstores stayed open late and you could get good coffee at 3 in the morning. I told her I was a writer, kept it vague, and she didn't press. She didn't ask what I'd published or if she'd know my work. She just listened when I talked about why I loved writing, about the craft itself. We started dating 2 weeks later. 3 months in, I finally told her the truth about my career. Not because I was hiding it exactly, but because I wanted her to know me as Merrick first, not as Merrick Holloway, the guy who'd written The Elsewhere Frequency, the sci-fi thriller that had spent 48 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list and been adapted into a Netflix series that everyone and their grandmother had binged. When I finally showed her my Wikipedia page, she'd gone completely still for a moment, then laughed so hard she nearly choked on her wine. "You're kidding me," she'd said, looking between me and the screen. "The guy who cried during that romance movie last week wrote one of the most violent sci-fi books of the decade?" "I contain multitudes," I'd replied, grinning. She'd kissed me then and told me that she loved that I hadn't led with my success, that I'd just been myself. "Most guys in New York lead with their resume before they even tell you their last name," she'd said. "You led with your heart." That was Thessaly. She saw people, really saw them, beneath all the noise and performance. We got married 18 months later in a small ceremony in upstate New York, just family and close friends. I didn't invite industry people. Thessaly didn't want a big production. We wanted something real, something ours. The wedding photographer was her college roommate. The cake was from a local bakery. My mom cried the entire time. It was perfect. Thessaly left her job at the publishing house about 6 months after we got married, not because I asked her to, or because she needed to financially, but because she'd been offered a position at a boutique marketing firm in Midtown that specialized in literary campaigns. Better pay, more creative freedom, closer to the kind of work she'd always wanted to do. She was excited. I was excited for her. That's where she met Romina Castellanos. From the first week, I could tell something was off. Thessaly would come home from work with this subtle tension in her shoulders, this careful way of choosing her words when she talked about her day. Romina's name came up a lot, always in stories that seemed designed to prove how successful, how connected, how superior Romina was. "Romina knows the CEO of Random House personally," Thessaly would say over dinner. Or, "Romina closed a 6-figure deal today with a debut author. She's really incredible at what she does." At first, I thought Thessaly was just impressed by a colleague. But as weeks turned into months, I started noticing the little digs that Romina would apparently make. They were always wrapped in concern or humor, always delivered with a smile, but they were digs nonetheless. "Romina said I should really invest in some designer work clothes if I want to be taken seriously in client meetings," Thessaly mentioned once, looking down at her perfectly professional outfit. "Romina thinks I'm too quiet in team brainstorms. She said I need to be more assertive if I want to move up," she said another time, and I could hear the self-doubt creeping into her voice. The worst part was when Romina started commenting on our relationship. It started subtly. According to Thessaly, Romina would make offhand comments about how Thessaly could do better, or how she was settling down too early when she should be living her best life. But then it escalated. "Romina asked what you do for work today," Thessaly had told me about 6 months ago, stirring her pasta absently. "I told her you're a writer, and she kind of laughed and said, 'Oh, one of those. So he's broke and tortured?' I explained that you're actually successful, but she just gave me this pitying look." Why didn't you just tell her I wrote the elsewhere frequency? I'd asked, irritated. Thessaly had shrugged. Because it felt like I'd be using your success to defend our relationship, and I shouldn't have to do that. Besides, you like keeping a low profile. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. She was right. I did like keeping a low profile. After the craziness of the book launch, the Netflix adaptation, the interviews and the conventions and the constant invasion of privacy, I'd deliberately stepped back. I deleted my personal social media, kept only a professional Instagram account that my publicist managed, and mostly just posted about new projects or book recommendations. I didn't go to industry parties. I didn't play the celebrity author game. I wrote my books, I lived my life with Thessaly, and I was happy. But Romina didn't know any of that. To her, I was just Thessaly's nobody husband who probably wrote unpublished manuscripts in a coffee shop while his wife supported them both. The thing is, I didn't care what Romina thought. I truly didn't. I cared that her toxic behavior was affecting Thessaly. I could see it wearing on her, chipping away at her confidence. My brilliant, talented, beautiful wife was starting to question herself because some mean girl coworker had decided to make her a project. I'd suggested, multiple times, that Thessaly set boundaries with Romina or talk to HR about the hostile work environment. But Thessaly, ever the optimist, ever the person who wanted to see the best in people, kept making excuses. She's just intense, Thessaly would say. She's actually been really helpful with some of my campaigns. I think she just has a harsh way of showing she cares. That's not care, that's manipulation, I'd argue. But Thessaly would change the subject, and I'd drop it because I didn't want to fight about her coworker every night. Until tonight. Until that Instagram post. The bathroom door opened, and Thessaly emerged in her pajamas, her wet hair wrapped in a towel. She looked beautiful and vulnerable, and completely unaware of the bomb that had just detonated in her social media feed. "Hey," she said, smiling at me. "What are you looking at? You've been staring at your phone for like 20 minutes. I looked at her, then back at my phone, at Romina's smug face in that photo, at that venomous caption, at the comment section that was rapidly turning into a spectator sport. "Merrick?" Thessaly's voice carried a note of concern now. "What's wrong?" I could tell her. I should tell her. But something in me wanted to handle this first, wanted to respond to Romina before Thessaly saw it, and before I could second-guess myself. "Nothing," I lied, my thumb moving back to the comment box. "Just checking something. Hey, did you leave your phone in the bathroom? It's been buzzing a lot." "Oh, yeah, probably just work stuff," she said, walking toward the bathroom. I had maybe 60 seconds before she saw the post. 60 seconds to decide if I was really going to do this, really going to blow up my carefully maintained privacy, really going to let the world back into our quiet life. I thought about Thessaly's face every time she came home after a day of Romina's subtle cruelty. I thought about the way she'd started second-guessing her outfits, her opinions, her choices. I thought about the fact that this woman had publicly humiliated my wife, tagged her so all their mutual colleagues and friends would see it, all because she got some sick satisfaction from tearing other people down. My fingers moved across the screen, typing quickly. From the bathroom, I heard Thessaly gasp. "Oh my God." She'd found her phone. She'd seen the post. I hit send on my comment just as Thessaly rushed back into the living room, her face pale, her phone clutched in her hand. "Merrick, I'm so sorry. I can't believe she—" Thessaly started, but then she stopped, her eyes going wide as she looked at her phone again. "Wait. What? No, you didn't." I looked at her calmly, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. "I did." "Merrick, what did you do?" Her voice was almost a whisper. I turned my phone screen toward her, showing her the comment I'd just posted from my verified account, the one with over 2 million followers, the one that identified me clearly as Merrick Holloway, best-selling author, screenwriter, and apparently Thessaly's nobody husband. The comment was simple, direct, and already starting to accumulate likes at a terrifying speed. Thessaly stared at the screen, her mouth open, and I watched in real time as her phone began to explode with notifications. Not just from her Instagram app, but from text messages, from calls, from every social media platform she was on. The post was going viral, and we were at the center of the storm. "Oh my God," Thessaly breathed again, sitting down heavily on the couch. "Merrick, do you realize what you just—" Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. "It's Romina." We both stared at the phone as it vibrated in her hand, Romina's name flashing on the screen like a warning. Thessaly let the call go to voicemail. Then, immediately, it started ringing again. Romina wasn't going to stop. "Answer it," I said quietly. "Put it on speaker." Thessaly's hand trembled slightly as she accepted the call and tapped the speaker button. "Thessaly! Thessaly!" Romina's voice came through shrill and panicked, so different from her usual calculated smoothness. "What the hell is happening? Why is Merrick Holloway commenting on my post? Is this some kind of joke? Did you hire someone to pretend to be him? Because this isn't funny, It's not a joke, Romina." Thessaly's voice was eerily calm, though I could see her knuckles turning white around the phone. "That's actually my husband." Dead silence on the other end. I could practically hear Romina's brain short-circuiting. That's impossible," Romina finally sputtered. "Your husband is a nobody. You said he was a writer. You never said he was the Merrick Holloway. You never said he wrote The Elsewhere Frequency. No, you would have told me. You would have said something." "Why would I need to tell you?" Thessaly asked, and I felt a surge of pride at the steel in her voice. "You never actually asked about him. You just assumed. And you know what they say about assuming, Romina." "This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Thessaly, you need to get him to delete that comment right now. Do you understand what this is doing? Do you see what's happening to my post? I'm getting torn apart in the comments. People are finding my LinkedIn, my Facebook, they're sending me messages calling me every name in the book. This is cyberbullying. This is harassment. I could sue for this. You could what?" I cut in, my voice level. "You could sue me for defending my wife from your public humiliation of her? You tagged her, Romina. You put her name on a post calling me a nobody and accusing her of wasting her life. That's not a private conversation. That's public defamation. So please tell me more about your legal options. I'd love to hear them." Another silence, but this one felt different. Dangerous. "Merrick." Romina's voice had changed, taking on a syrupy, sweet quality that made my skin crawl. "Look, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding here. That post wasn't really about you specifically. It was more of a general commentary on settling versus striving, you know? It was meant to be motivational. I was just trying to encourage Thessaly to reach her full potential." "By calling her husband a nobody?" I said. "Interesting motivational technique." "I didn't know who you were. If I had known, I obviously never would have—" "So you only respect people if they're famous?" Thessaly interrupted, and I heard anger creeping into her voice now. "You only think someone is worthy if they have a certain level of public success? That's what you're telling me right now?" "No, God, you're twisting my words. Both of you are twisting everything. Look, I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry. I'll delete the post right now. We can all just move on and forget this happened." "It's been screenshot thousands of times already," I said. "Deleting it now won't change anything. The internet is forever, Romina. You should know that. Working in marketing." I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. "What do you want from me? What will it take to make this go away?" "I don't want anything from you," I said. "I wanted you to understand that actions have consequences. You wanted to publicly humiliate my wife because you thought there would be no repercussions. You thought wrong." The call ended abruptly. Romina had hung up. Thessaly set her phone down on the coffee table and turned to look at me. Her expression was complicated, layers of emotions I couldn't quite read. "Show me what you wrote." I handed her my phone. She read the comment out loud, her voice barely above a whisper. "Interesting perspective, Romina. As the nobody in question, I'm curious about your definition of real ambition. Does it include publicly bullying your coworkers? Does it include tearing down other people to make yourself feel superior? My wife is the most talented, brilliant person I know. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, least of all someone who measures human worth in Instagram, likes, and job titles. But since you brought up success, let's talk about it. My last book advance was 7 figures. The Netflix adaptation of my work has been watched by over 60 million households worldwide. I've been on the NYT bestseller list for a combined 89 weeks across 3 novels. But you know what I'm most proud of? Coming home to a woman who loves me for who I am, not what I've accomplished. That's not settling. That's winning at life. Maybe that's what real friends should be thinking about. Actually going somewhere. Sorry, not sorry. When she finished reading, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. For a moment, I worried I'd made things worse, that I'd overstepped, that I'd embarrassed her by making this public. Then she launched herself at me, wrapping her arms around my neck and burying her face in my shoulder. "I can't believe you did that," she said, her voice muffled against my shirt. "I can't believe you actually did that. I'm sorry if I—" "Don't apologize." She pulled back to look at me, and she was smiling through her tears. "Merrick, do you know how long I've been putting up with her crap? How many times she's made me feel small? How many times I've gone to the bathroom at work just to cry because of something she said? And I kept defending her to you because I thought maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was the problem." "You were never the problem," I said firmly, cupping her face in my hands. "She's a bully, Thessaly, a sophisticated, well-dressed bully, but a bully nonetheless." She kissed me then, hard and urgent, and for a few minutes we forgot about phones and social media and toxic coworkers. When we finally pulled apart, both of our phones were vibrating non-stop. "We should probably look at what's happening," Thessaly said, reaching for her phone. The next hour was surreal. My comment had detonated across social media like a nuclear bomb. Within minutes, it had been screenshot and shared across Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Reddit. Entertainment news sites were already writing articles. "Author Merrick Holloway defends wife against cruel coworker," read one headline. "Netflix's Elsewhere Frequency creator claps back at Instagram bully," read another. But it was the comments sections that really told the story. Thousands upon thousands of people were weighing in. "This is what a real man looks like, defending his wife without hesitation." "I just looked up Merrick Holloway's net worth and I'm screaming. Romina really called a multimillionaire best-selling author a nobody. The audacity. The fact that he's been low-key this whole time and could have flexed at any moment but only spoke up when someone attacked his wife. That's love." Romina's LinkedIn is getting absolutely destroyed right now. Her company must be having a meltdown. That last comment made me pause. I hadn't thought about the professional repercussions for Romina. I clicked over to LinkedIn and found that yes, Romina's profile was indeed being bombarded with comments and reviews. But more concerning was what I found when I scrolled further. "Thessaly," I said slowly, "what's the name of your company again? The full name." "Castellanos Literary Marketing," she said, looking up from her phone. "Why?" "Castellanos," I repeated. "Like Romina Castellanos?" Thessaly nodded. Then her eyes went wide. "Oh no, no. Is Romina related to the owner?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from the sick feeling in my stomach. "She's the owner's daughter," Thessaly whispered. "The company is named after her family. Her dad founded it 30 years ago. He's semi-retired now, but he still makes all the major decisions. Merrick, I just publicly humiliated the boss's daughter. We stared at each other as the implications sank in. Maybe it'll be okay, I started to say. But Thessaly's phone rang, cutting me off. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. It's Davian. He's the COO. He only calls people when something really serious is happening. She answered the call, not putting it on speaker this time. I watched her face as she listened, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her eyes fill with tears. I understand, she said finally. Yes. Tomorrow morning. I'll be there. She ended the call and set the phone down very carefully, like it might explode. They want to meet with me first thing tomorrow morning, she said, her voice hollow. Davian didn't say it outright, but I could hear it in his voice. They're going to fire me, Merrick. I'm going to lose my job because you defended me. Then we'll sue them for wrongful termination, I said immediately. We'll make this right. With what evidence? They'll say it's for poor performance or cultural fit, or any of a dozen other reasons that have nothing to do with this. You don't know how these things work. Companies like this, family-owned companies, they protect their own. And Romina is their own. I'm just an employee. She stood up abruptly and walked to the window, her arms wrapped around herself. I worked so hard to get that job. Do you know how competitive the literary marketing field is? How many people would kill for a position at Castellanos? And now it's over. All because Romina couldn't keep her opinions to herself, and you couldn't let it go. The words stung because there was truth in them. I had escalated this. I had taken a private hurt and made it a public spectacle, and now Thessaly was going to pay the price. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I was trying to help. I know, she said, but she didn't turn around. I know you were. But Merrick, you can't fix everything with a clever comment and your platform. Real life doesn't work like social media. There are consequences that last beyond the news cycle. My phone buzzed with a text, then another, then several more in rapid succession. I picked it up and felt my stomach drop even further. They were from Portia, my agent. Merrick, what the hell is happening? Your mentions are insane. I've got 3 different production companies asking about your marriage story rights. They want to option this for a film. BuzzFeed wants an exclusive interview, so does The Cut, and People magazine. Call me ASAP. This is getting out of control. I looked up to tell Thessaly, but she was already reading something on her own phone. Her face getting paler by the second. Someone found our wedding photos, she said, her voice shaking. From Lenora's Instagram. She'd posted them with the account set to public. Now they're everywhere. People are zooming in, analyzing my dress, commenting on everything. Someone tracked down the venue and found out how much it costs to rent. They're calculating our wedding budget. Merrick, they're dissecting our private life like it's entertainment. She finally turned to look at me, and the expression on her face broke my heart. This is what you wanted to avoid, isn't it? She said. This is why you quit social media, why you stopped doing interviews, why you wanted to keep your life private, and I just dragged us both into the spotlight because I couldn't handle my coworker. This isn't your fault, I said forcefully. None of this is your fault. Then whose fault is it? She asked, and I didn't have an answer. My phone rang. Unknown number. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. Different unknown number. I declined again. Then Thessaly's phone rang. Then mine again. Then hers. They found our numbers, I realized. Reporters, industry people, everyone. Thessaly silenced her phone and tossed it onto the couch. I can't do this right now. I need to think about what I'm going to say tomorrow at that meeting. I need to figure out how to save my career if that's even possible anymore. She walked toward our bedroom, then paused at the doorway. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. I need some space to process everything. The door closed behind her with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. I stood alone in our living room, surrounded by the glow of two constantly buzzing phones, and realized that in trying to defend my wife's honor, I might have destroyed the quiet, peaceful life we'd built together. My phone lit up with another notification. This time it was an email with the subject line: Legal notice, defamation claim, Romina Castellanos. I opened it with shaking hands. The email was from Yardley and Associates, a law firm I recognized as one of the most aggressive in Manhattan. They were representing Romina and demanding I delete my comment, issue a public apology, and pay damages for defamation, emotional distress, and harm to her professional reputation. The amount they were asking for made my eyes water, but it was the last paragraph that really caught my attention. Furthermore, our client has evidence that your wife, Thessaly Holloway, has been engaged in a deliberate campaign to undermine Ms. Castellanos' position at Castellanos Literary Marketing, including but not limited to sharing confidential client information with competing firms, poisoning the work environment against Ms. Castellanos, and using her connection to you to intimidate colleagues. We will be pursuing all available legal remedies against both you and Mrs. Holloway. Please have your legal representation contact us within 48 hours. Evidence. They claimed to have evidence. I read the paragraph 3 more times, my mind racing. This was insane. This was a complete fabrication. Thessaly would never do any of those things. She was the most ethical person I knew. But then I thought about how corporations work, how family businesses protect their own, how easy it would be for them to manufacture evidence or twist innocent actions into something malicious. They weren't just going to fire Thessaly. They were going to try to destroy her professionally, make her unhireable, make sure no other literary marketing firm would touch her. And it was all my fault. I knocked softly on the guest room door. Thessaly, we need to talk. There's something you need to see. No response. Thessaly, please, it's important. The door opened. She'd been crying, her eyes red and puffy. What now? I showed her the email. I watched her face as she read it, watched the shock turn to disbelief, turn to something harder, something that looked almost like resignation. They're going to bury me, she said quietly. They're going to make up lies, and they have the resources to make people believe them. Merrick, I'm not just losing my job, I'm losing my entire career. We'll fight this, I said. We'll get the best lawyers, With what? She interrupted. With your comment that's now been seen by millions of people? That's not evidence of my innocence. That's just proof that my husband inserted himself into my professional relationships and made everything worse. She handed my phone back to me. I can't talk about this right now. I can't think about it. I need to sleep, and then I need to face tomorrow, and then I'll figure out what comes next. The door closed again, and this time I didn't knock. I went back to the living room and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I opened Twitter on my phone and created a new personal account. If this was going to be a public battle, then I needed to control the narrative. I needed to tell our side of the story before Romina and her family's lawyers could spin it into something unrecognizable. I started typing a thread, my fingers flying across the screen. I'd posted the first tweet when I heard it. A sound from outside our building getting louder. Voices, multiple voices, chanting something. I went to our window and looked down at the street below. There were people, dozens of them, maybe more, gathered on the sidewalk outside our apartment building. They had their phones out, recording. Some had signs. I couldn't read them all from the 5th floor, but I could make out a few. Justice for Thessaly. Down with workplace bullies. We stand Merrick. My hands started shaking again as I realized what was happening. My comment hadn't just gone viral. It had become a movement. People were showing up at our home to show support. Or at least, that's what I thought until I saw the other signs. Romina deserves better. Merrick Holloway is a bully. Stop the harassment. They weren't all supporters. Some of them were Romina's defenders, and the two groups were starting to argue with each other, their voices rising. Our doorbell started buzzing, continuously. Someone was leaning on it. I ran to the intercom. Hello? Mr. Holloway, this is Officer Kincaid with the NYPD. We need you to come down to the lobby. There's a situation developing outside your building, and we need to discuss some concerns about public safety. I pressed the button. I'll be right down. But before I could move toward the door, I heard Thessaly scream. I sprinted to the guest room and threw open the door without knocking. She was standing at the window, her phone pressed to her ear, her face frozen in an expression of absolute horror. What? I said. What is it? She lowered the phone slowly, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. That was my sister Bellamy. She's at the hospital in Portland. Someone just showed up at my parents' house. They said they were a reporter doing a story about us. When my dad told them to leave, they got aggressive. My dad had a heart attack, Merrick. He's in the ICU. They don't know if he's going to make it. The room seemed to tilt. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. I need to get to Portland, Thessaly said, moving mechanically toward the closet. I need to book a flight. I need to... She stopped mid-sentence and turned to look at me. And in her eyes I saw something that terrified me more than anything else that had happened tonight. I saw blame. This is what happens, she said, her voice eerily calm now. This is what happens when you make everything public, when you turn a private hurt into a spectacle. People get hurt, real people, not just online avatars or comments or likes. My father might die because you needed to defend my honor on Instagram. Thessaly, I never meant... I know you didn't mean it, she cut me off. But that doesn't change what's happening. My father is in the ICU. There are people outside our building. I'm about to lose my job and possibly face a lawsuit. And for what? So you could feel like you won an argument with my coworker? She grabbed her suitcase from the closet and started throwing clothes into it. I'm going to Portland, she said without looking at me. I don't know when I'm coming back. Maybe after the meeting tomorrow, if I still have a job to come back to. Maybe after I figure out if my father is going to survive. Maybe never. I don't know anymore, Merrick. I don't know anything anymore except that I need to be with my family right now, and I need to not be here. Let me come with you, I said desperately. Let me help. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were completely dry now. All the tears burned away. You've helped enough. The words hit me like a physical blow. She zipped up her suitcase and walked past me toward the front door. I followed her, trying to find something to say that would fix this, that would make her understand. Thessaly, please, we can work through this. We can... She opened the door and then turned back to face me one last time. I love you, Merrick. I do. But right now, I need you to love me enough to let me go. I need space. I need to think. I need to figure out if I can forgive you for this. If. The word came out broken. If, she repeated, and walked out the door. I stood there, frozen, as I heard the elevator ding and then descend. I went back to the window and watched as she emerged from our building, watched as the crowd of protesters and supporters immediately recognized her, watched as phones turned in her direction, recording every moment of her worst day. She kept her head down and pushed through to the street, where she flagged down a taxi. In seconds, she was gone. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out numbly and saw I had a voicemail from an unknown number. I almost didn't listen to it, but something made me press play. The voice was distorted, disguised somehow, but the message was crystal clear. Mr. Holloway, you made a big mistake going after Romina Castellanos. That family doesn't forget. They don't forgive. And they always win. Your wife doesn't know it yet, but she's finished in this industry. And so are you. Watch your back. Things are about to get much worse. The voicemail ended. I lowered the phone and looked around our empty apartment, at the life we'd built that was now crumbling around me, at the evidence of a perfect evening that had turned into a nightmare. My phone buzzed again. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it and immediately wished I hadn't. It was a photo. A screenshot, actually, of what looked like an email exchange. Between Thessaly's work email and an address I didn't recognize, the emails discussed client information, confidential strategies, details about Castellanos Literary Marketing's upcoming campaigns. The timestamps were from the past 6 months. Below the screenshot was a message. More where this came from. Tell your wife to check her work laptop. She's going to want to see what we found before tomorrow's meeting. Tick-tock. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Either someone had fabricated these emails and planted them in Thessaly's work account, or... No. No, there was no or. Thessaly wouldn't do this. She couldn't have done this. But the evidence was right there on my screen, and if they showed this to her bosses tomorrow, no amount of my public defense would save her career. My phone rang. This time I answered without checking the number. Mr. Holloway? A smooth female voice. Professional. My name is Octavia Brennan. I'm a crisis management consultant, and I think we need to talk. What started as a social media dispute has become a legitimate threat to both you and your wife's safety and professional futures. I can help, but I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say. Can you do that? I looked around our empty apartment, thought about Thessaly on a plane to Portland to see her dying father, thought about the mob outside, thought about the fabricated evidence that was about to destroy everything we'd built. Yes, I said. Tell me what to do. First, Octavia said, don't leave your apartment. Don't talk to the police without a lawyer present. Don't post anything else on social media. And most importantly, don't trust anyone. The Castellanos family has connections you can't imagine. They own judges, they own reporters, they own people in positions you wouldn't expect. This isn't just about a social media comment anymore. This is war, and you just brought a knife to a gunfight. Then what do? I asked, my voice barely steady. You let me arm you properly, she said. I'll be at your building in 20 minutes. We have a lot of work to do, and very little time to do it. Because, Mr. Holloway, there's something you need to know about the Castellanos family. Something your wife probably didn't know, or didn't want to tell you. What? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Castellanos Literary Marketing isn't just a boutique firm. It's a front. The real money comes from their other businesses. Businesses that aren't exactly legal. And your comment didn't just embarrass Romina. It drew attention to a family that has spent decades staying out of the spotlight. They can't let that stand. The line went dead. I stood in the middle of my living room, my wife's words echoing in my head. You've helped enough. She was right. I had helped. I'd helped set our entire lives on fire. And now I had to figure out how to put out the flames before everything we loved burned to ash. Outside, the crowd was getting larger. Inside, my phones wouldn't stop buzzing. And somewhere between Brooklyn and Portland, Thessaly was flying away from me, maybe forever, while I stood paralyzed by the consequences of trying to be her hero. My phone lit up one more time. An email notification. The subject line read, Tomorrow's headlines. Preview from Mr. Holloway. I opened it. It was a mock-up of a tabloid front page, the kind they sell at grocery store checkout lines. The headline screamed, Netflix author's wife exposed. Corporate espionage scandal rocks literary world. Below it was that same screenshot from earlier, blown up and highlighted, with Thessaly's name circled in red. The article preview underneath detailed allegations of stolen client lists, bribed employees, and a systematic campaign to destroy Castellanos' literary marketing from the inside. All of it lies. All of it fabricated. But none of that mattered. By tomorrow morning, this would be the story. Not the truth. Not what really happened. Just this carefully constructed narrative designed to destroy us both. I heard a knock at my door. Firm. Official. Through the peephole, I could see 2 uniformed officers and someone in a suit I didn't recognize. "NYPD," one of them called out. "Mr. Holloway, we need to ask you some questions about the incident at your wife's parents' home in Portland. We're also here to discuss the restraining order that's been filed against you." Restraining order. Of course. I leaned my forehead against the door and closed my eyes. 24 hours ago, I'd been a happily married man whose biggest concern was deciding what to order for dinner. Now I was a man whose wife had left him, whose father-in-law was in intensive care, who was being sued for defamation, who had inadvertently declared war on a family with mob connections, and who apparently had a restraining order filed against him by the woman who'd started all of this. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. "Mr. Rind? Holloway, we know you're in there. Please open the door." I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and reached for the doorknob. Whatever happened next, whatever they accused me of, whatever evidence they'd manufactured or truths they'd twisted, I had to face it. Because somewhere in Portland, Thessaly was sitting in a hospital waiting room, probably hating me, definitely scared, and I'd promised to love and protect her. Even if protecting her now meant fighting a battle I'd never wanted and didn't know how to win. I opened the door. The cop closest to me held up a badge in one hand and a piece of paper in the other. "Mr. Merrick Holloway, we have a warrant to search these premises in connection with allegations of cyber harassment, stalking, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. You have the right to remain silent." As they read me my rights and pushed past me into my apartment, my phone buzzed one final time in my pocket. I managed to glance at it before they confiscated it. It was a text from Thessaly. Just 3 words. "They're claiming fraud." Then the phone was taken from my hands, and I watched helplessly as a dozen officers in gloves began systematically dismantling our home, looking for evidence of crimes I hadn't committed, building a case for a persecution I'd accidentally triggered with a single Instagram comment defending the woman I loved. As they led me to the couch and told me to sit down and not move, I realized that Romina had been right about one thing in her original post. Some people really were nobodies. And right now, as I watched my life being torn apart by forces I didn't understand and couldn't control, I'd never felt more like a nobody in my entire life. The search lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of watching strangers rifle through our belongings, photograph our personal items, and bag evidence of crimes that existed only in fabricated documents. They took both our laptops, our tablets, external hard drives I'd forgotten we even owned, old phones from a drawer in the kitchen, and a file box of Thessaly's work documents she'd brought home months ago. The detective in charge, a hard-faced woman named Quintessa Marks, sat across from me at our dining table with a recorder between us. "Mr. Holloway, do you have access to your wife's work email?" she asked for the 3rd time. "No," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't even know her password." "But you have access to her devices. We live together. Of course I have physical access to her devices." "That doesn't mean I use them." Detective Marks leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You're aware that corporate espionage is a federal crime? That the penalties can include significant prison time?" "I'm aware that I haven't committed any crimes," I said, "and neither has my wife." "Then how do you explain the emails?" She slid a printed document across the table. It was the same screenshot I'd received earlier, but now it was part of an official police document, given weight and legitimacy by its presence in an investigation. I looked at it carefully this time. Really examined it. The email addresses, the formatting, the language Thessaly supposedly used. "This isn't how my wife writes," I said slowly. "She never uses contractions in professional emails. She's weirdly formal about it." "This email is full of them." "People have different writing styles for different contexts," Detective Marks said dismissively. "Not Thessaly. It's her thing. She's consistent." I pointed at another line. "And she would never use this phrase." "Loop you in?" She hates that expression. She calls it corporate speak nonsense. "Or," Detective Marks said, "she's exactly the kind of person who knows how to hide her tracks. A smart criminal doesn't leave obvious fingerprints." "A smart criminal," I countered, "wouldn't leave any fingerprints at all. These emails are designed to look real, but withstand just enough scrutiny to be believable to people who don't actually know Thessaly. That's not evidence. That's a frame job." Detective Marks's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Doubt? Interest? I couldn't tell. "The Castellanos family has made a very serious complaint," she said. "They have lawyers, resources, and a strong case. If your wife is innocent, she'll have her day in court to prove it. And in the meantime, her reputation is destroyed," I said bitterly. "Even if she's exonerated, the accusation alone will follow her for years. That's the point, isn't it?" Detective Marks stood up and clicked off the recorder. "I'm going to give you some unofficial advice, Mr. Holloway, off the record. You seem like a smart man who made a dumb mistake. The Castellanos family has been in this city for 40 years. They have connections at every level. If I were you, I'd consider settling this quietly. Apologize publicly, pay whatever damages they're asking for, and move on with your life. Because if you fight this, you're going to lose. And you're going to take your wife down with you." "Is that what they told you to tell me?" I asked. She didn't answer, just gathered her papers and headed for the door. "We'll be in touch. Don't leave the city." After they left, I stood in the wreckage of our apartment and tried to think clearly. My phones had been confiscated as evidence, but they'd left our landline. I didn't even remember the last time we'd used it. I dialed Thessaly's number from memory, praying she'd answer an unknown call. She did, on the 4th ring. "Hello?" Her voice was raw from crying. "It's me," I said. "They took my phones. How's your dad?" "Stable," she said, and I heard the exhaustion in that single word. "They got his heart rhythm back. He's sedated now. They're saying if he makes it through the next 48 hours, his chances improve significantly." "Thank God," I breathed. "Thessaly, we need to talk about—" "I know," she interrupted. "Bellamy showed me the article preview, the one about the espionage allegations. Merrick, I never sent those emails. I would never—" "I know you didn't," I said firmly. "I told the police that. I told them it's not your writing style, that it's obviously fabricated." "Did they believe you?" The hope in her voice broke my heart. "I don't know. But there's something else. Someone sent me a text with those screenshots before the police showed up. They knew about the search warrant before it happened. The Castellanos family is orchestrating this whole thing." I heard her take a shaky breath. "What do we do?" Before I could answer, there was a knock at my door. I walked to the peephole and saw a woman in her mid-40s, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit, with steel-gray hair cut in a sharp bob. She held up an ID badge. "That's the crisis management consultant," I told Thessaly. "The one who called earlier. She says she can help." "Merrick, I don't know if we can trust anyone right now." "We can't not trust anyone either," I said. "We need help, Thessaly. This is bigger than both of us." Silence on her end. Then, "Okay, but be careful. And call me back on this number as soon as you can." "I love you," I said. Another pause. "I know," she said, and hung up. "Not, I love you too. Just, I know." I opened the door. Octavia Brennan looked like she'd stepped out of a political thriller. Everything about her screamed competence and danger in equal measure. She walked into my apartment without waiting for an invitation, her eyes scanning the chaos left by the police search. "They didn't find anything because there's nothing to find," she said, not as a question, but as a statement. "The Castellanos family doesn't care. This was theater. They wanted you scared and off balance. How are you holding up?" "How do you think?" I said, closing the door. She turned to face me fully. "Better than most people would be, actually. You haven't posted anything else online. You haven't talked to reporters. You let the police search without a lawyer present, which was stupid, but you didn't incriminate yourself. That shows restraint. I didn't have a lawyer to call. You do now." She handed me a business card. "Jacoby Sinclair, best criminal defense attorney in New York. I already briefed him on your situation." "He's expecting your call." "I can't afford—" "You can't afford not to," Octavia interrupted. "And don't worry about the cost right now. We'll figure out payment later. First, we need to talk about what you're really dealing with." She sat down on our couch, somehow making herself look comfortable despite the chaos around us. "The Castellanos family has been laundering money through their literary marketing business for 20 years. They use legitimate publishing deals to hide income from their real business, which is loan sharking and gambling operations up and down the East Coast. Small scale compared to traditional organized crime, but lucrative and under the radar." I stared at her. "How do you know this?" "Because I used to work for them," Octavia said calmly. "Not directly. I was a consultant for one of their shell companies, back before I understood what I was really doing. When I figured it out and tried to leave, they made my life very difficult for a while. Eventually, I made a deal. I keep quiet about what I know. They leave me alone to do my work. It's been a functional detente for 5 years." "Then why are you here? Why help me?" "Because they broke the deal first," she said. And for the first time, I heard real anger in her voice. "They sent a reporter to harass an innocent man and caused him to have a heart attack. They're framing your wife for crimes she didn't commit. They're using police resources to intimidate you. That's not business. That's cruelty, and I'm done watching them destroy people." She pulled out a tablet and showed me a document. "This is what I've compiled so far. Financial records that show irregular payments from major publishers to Castellanos Literary Marketing. Email chains that hint at their real operations. Testimony from former employees who were too scared to speak up before. I've been collecting this information for years, waiting for the right moment to use it." "And this is the right moment?" I asked skeptically. "You made it the right moment when you posted that comment," Octavia said. "You shined a spotlight on them that they can't easily turn off. Millions of people are now watching this situation. If they destroy you and your wife, people will ask questions, and questions are dangerous for a family like the Castellanos." I sat down heavily in a chair. "So what's your plan?" "We go nuclear," she said simply. "We expose everything. The money laundering, the intimidation, the corruption. We give this information to federal investigators who aren't in the Castellanos family's pocket, and we do it in a way that protects you and Thessaly while burning their operation to the ground." "That's insane," I said. "They'll retaliate. They're already retaliating," Octavia pointed out. "They've already filed false charges, manufactured evidence, and sent you death threats. How much worse can it get?" I thought about Thessaly's father in the ICU. "A lot worse. Not if we move fast." She stood up and started pacing. "The meeting your wife has tomorrow morning? That's their endgame. They'll present the fabricated evidence, fire her with cause so she can't collect unemployment, and then they'll leak everything to the press. By noon tomorrow, Thessaly Holloway will be unemployable in the literary world. By evening, you'll be facing criminal charges. By next week, you'll both be financially ruined from legal fees, and the Castellanos family will go back to business as usual." "Unless?" I prompted. "Unless we strike first. Tonight. I have a contact at the FBI who's been looking for a way into the Castellanos organization for 3 years. If I give him this evidence package, he can have warrants prepared by morning. When Thessaly walks into that meeting tomorrow, it won't be to face her accusers. It'll be to watch them get arrested. It sounded too good to be true. Too easy. Too perfect. What's the catch? I asked. Octavia smiled grimly. The catch is that you'll become a witness in a federal investigation. Your private life will be dissected in court. Your wife will have to testify about her time working at Castellanos. Your quiet, anonymous existence ends permanently. There's no going back to the way things were. I looked around our apartment, at the home we'd built, at the life we'd carefully constructed away from spotlights and scrutiny. That life is already over, I said quietly. It ended the moment I posted that comment. Then we move forward, Octavia said. She pulled out a burner phone and handed it to me. Use this. Your regular phones are compromised anyway. I need you to call Thessaly and tell her not to go to that meeting tomorrow. Tell her to stay in Portland with her family. The less she's involved in the immediate fallout, the better. She's not going to like being sidelined. She's not being sidelined. She's being protected. Octavia headed for the door, then paused. One more thing. That voicemail you got earlier, with the distorted voice? That was Desmond Castellanos himself, Romina's father. He doesn't make threats lightly, and he doesn't make them personally unless he's serious. So from this point forward, you need to be careful. Vary your routes. Don't establish patterns, and don't trust anyone I haven't personally vetted. You're saying they might try to hurt me? I'm saying they might try to kill you, Octavia said bluntly. You're a threat to a multi-million-dollar criminal operation. That makes you a problem they need to solve permanently. After she left, I sat with the burner phone in my hands for a long time before calling Thessaly. She answered immediately. Did you talk to her? What did she say? I told her everything. The money laundering, the FBI contact, the plan to expose the Castellanos family. When I got to the part about her not going to the meeting, she went quiet. I'm going, she finally said. Thessaly, it's not safe. If something goes wrong, I want to be there, she interrupted. I want to look Romina in the eye when her world falls apart. I want to watch her face when she realizes that she picked the wrong person to bully. I've spent months letting her make me feel small. Tomorrow, I'm done being small. This isn't about revenge, I said, though I understood the feeling. No, Thessaly agreed. It's about justice, and I'm going to be there to see it served. We talked for another hour, making plans, discussing contingencies. By the time we hung up, something had shifted between us. We weren't fixed. There was still hurt and anger and fear. But we were partners again, united against a common enemy. I was about to try to sleep when the burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop what you're doing. The FBI agent Octavia is working with is on the Castellanos payroll. This is a trap. If you give them the evidence, it will disappear and so will you. Trust no one. Check your email for proof. My blood ran cold. I opened the email on my confiscated laptop. No, wait, they'd taken that. I'd have to use Thessaly's iPad that the police had somehow missed. The email contained a photograph. It showed the FBI agent that Octavia had mentioned. I recognized him from a quick Google search I'd done, shaking hands with Desmond Castellanos at what looked like an expensive restaurant. The timestamp on the photo was from 2 months ago. I stared at the image, trying to understand what I was seeing. Either Octavia was setting me up, or someone was trying to make me think she was setting me up so I wouldn't trust the one person trying to help me. Or both could be true, or neither. The burner phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Who is this? Someone who wants to help. The voice was young, female, scared. My name is Everly. I used to work, at Castellanos Literary Marketing. I'm one of the people Octavia interviewed for her evidence package. But there's something she doesn't know. Something no one knows except me and Romina. What? I asked, my heart pounding. Romina isn't the villain here, Everly said, speaking fast, like she was afraid of being overheard. She's a victim, too. Her father is using the company to hide his illegal activities, and Romina has been trying to get out for years. That Instagram post? That wasn't about you or Thessaly. It was bait. She wanted you to respond. She wanted to create a big enough scandal that federal investigators would finally look at the company. She's been trying to blow the whistle for months, but no one would listen to her because everyone thinks she's just a spoiled rich girl. I couldn't process what I was hearing. That doesn't make any sense. Why would she risk everything? Why not just go to the police herself? Because her father has threatened her, Everly said. He told her if she ever talked to authorities, he'd kill someone she loved. He did it before, when she was in college. She had a boyfriend who found out about the money laundering and wanted to report it. That boyfriend is now in a wheelchair for the rest of his life after a random hit and run. Romina knows what her father is capable of. So she provoked me into defending Thessaly publicly, knowing I had the platform to create enough attention that her father couldn't quietly make it go away. I said slowly, working through the logic. She wanted the spotlight on them. Exactly, Everly said, but now it's backfired. Her father is escalating instead of backing down. He's manufacturing evidence, he's sicking corrupt cops on you, and Romina is terrified that people are going to die because of her plan. That's why I'm calling. She wants to meet with you. Tonight, she'll tell you everything and she'll help you take down her father. But you have to come alone, and you can't tell Octavia or anyone else. Every instinct I had screamed that this was a trap, that it was too convenient. Too perfectly designed to get me alone and vulnerable. But what if it was true? What if Romina was actually trying to help and I ignored her? Where? I asked. Everly gave me an address in Queens, an abandoned warehouse district, of course. Midnight, she said. Come alone. If Romina sees anyone else, she'll run. She's risking her life to do this. The call ended. I sat there with the burner phone in my hand, trying to decide if I was about to make the smartest decision of my life or the stupidest. I called Octavia. She answered on the first ring. What's wrong? I told her about the call from Everly, about the claim that Romina was actually trying to help, about the meeting. It's a trap, Octavia said immediately. That's the oldest trick in the book. Make the enemy think you're on their side, get them vulnerable, and then eliminate them. Merrick, do not go to that meeting. But what if she's telling the truth? What if Romina really is a victim here? Then she can come forward publicly, with protection. She doesn't need to set up some cloak and dagger meeting in an abandoned warehouse at midnight. That's movie villain stuff. She was right. Of course she was right. But then why did I feel like I was missing something? I made a decision. I'm going. But I'm going wired. Can you set that up? Absolutely not, Octavia said. I'm not going to help you walk into a death trap. Then I'll go unwired, I said. But I'm going. If there's even a chance that Romina has information that can help us, I have to take it. Octavia was silent for a long moment. You're either very brave or very stupid. I prefer to think of myself as stupidly brave, I said. Fine, she sighed. But we do this my way. I'll have a team watching from a distance. You wear a wire, and if anything feels wrong, you abort immediately. Understood? Understood. We arranged the details. Octavia would meet me at my apartment at 11 to set up the equipment. Her surveillance team would be in position by 11:30. I'd go to the meeting at midnight. After I hung up, I realized I hadn't called Thessaly back. I dialed her number. Hey, she answered. Everything okay? Define okay, I said, and told her about the latest developments. Merrick, this is insane. You can't go to that meeting. It's obviously a trap. Probably, I agreed. But I have to try. If Romina really is trying to help, we need her testimony. It would be the difference between maybe taking down the Castellanos operation and definitely taking it down. And if it's a trap, it'll be the difference between you being alive and you being dead, Thessaly said, her voice cracking. I can't lose you. Not now. Not like this. You won't, I promised, though I had no idea if I could keep that promise. Octavia's team will be watching. I'll be wired. At the first sign of trouble, they'll move in. Your confidence in a woman you met 4 hours ago is remarkable, Thessaly said dryly. You're right, I admitted. But what choice do we have? We're fighting a crime family with unlimited resources and connections everywhere. We need every advantage we can get. Just promise me you'll be careful, Thessaly said. Promise me you won't take unnecessary risks. I promise, I lied. We talked for a few more minutes, and then she had to go. Her mother needed her at the hospital. After we hung up, I looked at the clock. It was 9:30. 2.5 hours until Octavia arrived. 5 hours until the meeting that would either save us or destroy us. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. My mind kept racing through scenarios, possibilities, outcomes. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Romina's face in that Instagram photo, saw the caption that had started all of this, saw the cascade of consequences that had followed. At 11 o'clock exactly, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Octavia, alone, holding a briefcase. I opened the door. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be. She came in and opened the briefcase, revealing a sophisticated wire setup, much more advanced than anything I'd seen in movies. This will record everything, she explained as she attached it to my chest under my shirt. It's also broadcasting live to my team, so they'll hear what's happening in real time. If you say the word Denver at any point, that's the abort signal. They'll move in immediately. Why Denver? I asked. Because it's random enough that you won't say it accidentally, she said. Now let's go over the plan one more time. We spent the next 40 minutes reviewing every detail. Where I'd park, how I'd approach the warehouse, what I'd say, how I'd position myself to stay safe. By the time we finished, it was 11:40. My team is in position, Octavia said, checking her phone. You should head out. And Merrick, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, get out. The information isn't worth your life. I drove to Queens in a rental car Octavia had arranged, one that couldn't be traced back to me. The warehouse district was exactly as ominous as I'd imagined. Dark, deserted, full of shadows and places for people to hide. I parked 2 blocks away and walked to the address Everly had given me. The warehouse was massive, with broken windows and graffiti covering the walls. The front door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The interior was one vast, empty space, lit only by moonlight streaming through the broken windows. At the far end, I could see a figure standing in the shadows. Hello, I called out, my voice echoing. The figure stepped forward into a shaft of moonlight. It was Romina Castellanos. She looked nothing like her Instagram photos. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a hoodie. No makeup. And her eyes were terrified. Mr. Holloway, she said, her voice shaking. Thank you for coming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I'm going to tell you the truth about everything. About my father, about the company, about that Instagram post. And then you're going to help me destroy him before he destroys all of us. I took a step closer. I'm listening. She opened her mouth to speak. And then the lights came on, flooding the warehouse with blinding brightness. I spun around and saw them, at least a dozen men, emerging from the shadows surrounding us. And at the front, walking toward us with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, was Desmond Castellanos. Thank you, Romina, he said softly. You did exactly as I told you. Now, Mr. Holloway, we need to have a conversation about respect and consequences. I looked at Romina, and saw tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. He has my mother. He said if I didn't bring you here, he'd kill her." Desmond Castellanos laughed. "Family," he said, shaking his head. "It's everything, isn't it? You'd do anything for them, lie for them, betray for them, even kill for them." He pulled out a gun. "The good news, Mr. Holloway, is that your death will look like a tragic accident. The bad news is that accidents can be quite painful." I reached for my phone, trying to press the panic button Octavia had set up. But my pocket was empty. I'd left the burner phone in the car. Desmond saw my face and smiled wider. "Looking for this?" He held up a phone, my phone. "We've been tracking you all night." "Did you really think Octavia Brennan was on your side? She works for me. She always has. This was all a setup from the moment you posted that comment. We wanted you scared, desperate, and stupid enough to walk into our trap." He raised the gun, pointing it directly at my chest. "Any last words, Mr. Holloway? Make them good. They'll be your last." I looked at Romina, at her terrified face, at the daughter being forced to watch her father commit murder, and I realized that I only had one move left. "Denver," I said clearly, loudly, hoping the wire was still working, hoping Octavia had been telling the truth about at least that part. Desmond frowned. "What?" "Denver!" I shouted, and then all hell broke loose. The warehouse exploded with sound and movement. The doors I'd entered through burst open, and FBI agents in tactical gear poured in from every direction, their weapons drawn, their voices overlapping in a chorus of commands. "FBI, drop your weapons. Get on the ground. Hands where we can see them." Desmond Castellanos spun around, his gun swinging wildly as he tried to process what was happening. His men scattered, some reaching for their own weapons, others bolting for exits that were already blocked. "Drop the weapon now!" an agent screamed, closing in on Desmond. For a moment, I thought he might actually shoot. His finger was on the trigger, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. But then Romina moved. She lunged at her father, grabbing his arm, forcing the gun toward the ceiling. "Dad, stop! Please, just stop!" The gun went off, the shot echoing deafeningly through the warehouse. Everyone dropped or dove for cover, but the bullet hit nothing but metal rafters high above us. 3 agents tackled Desmond, driving him to the ground. The gun skittered across the concrete floor. Within seconds, he was face down with his hands being zip-tied behind his back, agents shouting Miranda rights while he screamed obscenities. I stood frozen, my ears ringing, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode out of my chest. Someone grabbed my arm. I spun, ready to fight, but it was Octavia. "Are you hurt?" she demanded, her eyes scanning me for injuries. You're... I couldn't form words. "Desmond said you work for him." "Desmond is a liar and an idiot," Octavia said flatly. She pulled out her own FBI badge. "Special Agent Octavia Brennan, Financial Crimes Unit. I've been undercover in the Castellanos organization for 6 years. When you posted that comment and drew attention to them, you gave me the opening I needed to finally bring them down. But I had to make sure you were desperate enough to trust me, and I had to make the Castellanos family confident enough to make a move." I stared at the badge, then at her face. "Your FBI?" "The consulting business is my cover, has been for years." She released my arm. "The wire worked perfectly, by the way. We have Desmond on tape threatening to murder you, admitting to running criminal operations, and confessing to tracking you illegally. We have Romina's coerced participation on record, and thanks to the panic that Instagram comment created, we've had probable cause to raid every Castellanos business location simultaneously tonight. We're seizing records, arresting associates, and dismantling the entire operation." My legs suddenly felt weak. I sat down hard on the concrete floor. "So this was all part of your plan?" "Not all of it," Octavia admitted, crouching beside me. I didn't plan for you to be reckless enough to post that comment. I didn't plan for Thessaly's father to have a heart attack. I didn't plan for things to escalate this fast. But when it happened, I adapted. That's what good agents do. Across the warehouse, Romina was being helped to her feet by an agent. She wasn't being handcuffed. She looked over at me, her face streaked with tears. "I'm sorry," she called out. "I'm so sorry for all of it. The Instagram post was real. I really did think those things at first. I was horrible. But then when everything spiraled, when my father started threatening people, I realized how wrong I'd been. I tried to fix it. I tried to help." "She did help," Octavia confirmed quietly. "She's been cooperating with us for the past 8 hours, since we picked her up after she left work. Everything tonight, the phone call from Everly, the warehouse meeting, that was all staged by us to draw Desmond out into the open. We needed him to make his move where we could record it." "Everly doesn't exist?" I asked. "She's one of our agents. The whole thing was theater designed to give us evidence we could use in court." Octavia stood up and offered me her hand. "Come on. We need to get you somewhere safe and debriefed. And you need to call your wife. She's probably losing her mind right now." The burner phone. I'd left it in the car, but Octavia pulled out another one and handed it to me. "Use this. It's secure." I called Thessaly with shaking hands. She answered before the first ring finished. "Merrick? Oh my God, Merrick, are you okay? I've been watching the news. They're saying there's been a major FBI raid on multiple locations. The Castellanos company is all over the news. Romina's father was arrested. What happened? Where are you?" "I'm okay," I said, my voice cracking with relief at hearing hers. "I'm okay. It's over. It's all over." I told her everything while FBI agents continued securing the scene around me. About Octavia really being FBI, about the staged setup to catch Desmond, about Romina's cooperation. When I finished, Thessaly was crying. "I thought I'd lost you," she said. "When I saw the news, I thought the worst." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry for all of it. For posting that comment without thinking it through. For dragging you into this nightmare, for—" "Stop," Thessaly interrupted. "Merrick, stop apologizing. You defended me. You stood up for me when someone was publicly humiliating me. Yes, it got out of control. Yes, things happened that we couldn't predict. But you did it because you love me, and I love you for that. Even though I nearly got us both killed?" "Even though," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice now. "Besides, it sounds like we accidentally helped the FBI take down a major criminal organization. That's got to count for something." "How's your dad?" I asked. "Better," she said, and the relief in that single word was palpable. "He woke up an hour ago. He's still weak, but the doctors are optimistic. Mom's with him now. They're saying he can probably go home in a few days if he continues to improve." "Thank God," I breathed. "Thessaly, I love you. I love you so much." "I love you too," she said. "Come home, Merrick. When you're done with whatever you need to do, just come home. To Portland. To me. We'll figure out the rest together." After we hung up, Octavia led me out of the warehouse. The street was filled with FBI vehicles, police cars, and news vans that had somehow already arrived. Reporters were being held back by a police cordon, but I could see camera lights and hear them shouting questions. "You're going to want to avoid the media for now," Octavia advised. "Let us handle the press. Your part in this is important, but we don't need you in the spotlight." "I've had enough spotlight for a lifetime," I agreed. She drove me to a federal building in Manhattan where I spent the next 4 hours giving my statement, walking agents through everything that had happened from the moment I saw Romina's Instagram post until tonight. They recorded everything, had me sign documents, and assured me that I wouldn't face any charges. "What about Thessaly?" I asked. "Those fabricated emails? The corporate espionage allegations?" "All dropped," an agent named Reeves told me. "We've proven the emails were manufactured by the Castellanos organization to discredit her. She's clear. In fact, we're considering her a witness rather than a suspect. And her job? The company is being dissolved, Reeves said. Federal asset seizure. Everyone who worked there will be out of a job. But they'll be eligible for unemployment, and we'll make sure none of this affects their future employment prospects. Your wife's record will be clean. By the time I left the federal building, it was 6 in the morning. The city was waking up, commuters starting their days, completely unaware that a major criminal organization had been taken down overnight. I took a taxi back to my apartment, half expecting to find it still in chaos from the police search. Instead, I found Portia sitting on the front steps of my building. "Jesus Christ, Merrick," she said when she saw me. "I've been trying to reach you for 24 hours. Your phones are off, you're not answering emails, and suddenly you're all over the news as some kind of vigilante author who brought down a crime family." "It's been a complicated day," I said tiredly. She stood up and looked at me closely. "Are you okay? Really?" "Ask me again in a week," I said. "Right now I'm just trying to process everything." Portia followed me up to my apartment. While I made coffee, the one normal thing I could do in a profoundly abnormal situation, she filled me in on the media circus. "Every major outlet wants an interview," she said. "Netflix is already talking about doing a documentary. 3 different publishers want the book rights to your story. Your Instagram comment has been shared over 10 million times. You're trending on every social media platform. Merrick, you're more famous now than you were when The Elsewhere Frequency came out." "I don't want any of it," I said. "I just want my life back." "That's not really an option anymore," Portia said gently. "This is too big to ignore." "But we can control the narrative. We can decide how you engage with it. Give one good interview, tell your story on your terms, and then step back. That way the media has something, and they'll be more likely to leave you alone." I thought about it while I sipped my coffee. She was right. The story was out there whether I liked it or not. I might as well make sure it was told correctly. "One interview," I agreed. "But I get final approval on everything. And Thessaly gets to decide if she wants to participate or stay private." "Deal," Portia said. Over the next week, things slowly started to settle into a new normal. Thessaly's father continued to improve and was discharged from the hospital. Thessaly stayed in Portland with her family, and I flew out to join her 3 days after the FBI raid. When I arrived at her parents' house, she was waiting on the porch. I barely made it out of the taxi before she was running toward me, and then we were holding each other, neither of us willing to let go. "I'm sorry," I said into her hair. "I'm so sorry." "I know," she said. "Me too. I shouldn't have blamed you for my dad's heart attack. That wasn't your fault. It was that reporter's fault, and the Castellanos family's fault, and the stress of the entire situation, not yours." "I still shouldn't have posted that comment without talking to you first," I said. "It was your fight to fight." "It was our fight," Thessaly corrected. "You're my husband. When someone attacks me, they attack us both. I just wish we could have handled it differently." "Me too," I admitted. Her parents were wonderful, welcoming me with open arms despite everything. Her father, Thornton, was still weak, but insisted on shaking my hand. "Thank you for defending my daughter," he said, "even if it did get a bit out of hand." "That's the understatement of the century," Thessaly's mother, Paloma, said dryly, but she was smiling. We stayed in Portland for 2 weeks. Thessaly and I spent long hours talking, walking along the waterfront, slowly rebuilding what had been damaged. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, old hurts that surfaced, fears about the future. But we worked through them together. The media frenzy gradually died down. I gave one interview to a respected journalist, told the story honestly, and then retreated from the spotlight again. Romina gave her own interview, apologizing publicly for her behavior and explaining her father's abuse and control. She was surprisingly sympathetic in it. and public opinion shifted from seeing her as a villain to seeing her as another victim of the Castellanos organization. Desmond Castellanos was indicted on 47 counts, including racketeering, money laundering, extortion, and attempted murder. His trial was scheduled for the following year. Other members of the organization were arrested and charged. The whole operation came crashing down. 3 weeks after the warehouse incident, Thessaly and I were back in our Brooklyn apartment trying to figure out what came next. "I got a job offer," Thessaly said one morning over breakfast. "A literary marketing firm in Portland. They want me to head their New York satellite office when they open it in 6 months. Until then, I'd work remotely from wherever." "Portland?" I said carefully. "You want to move?" "I want to be closer to my parents," she said. "After everything that happened with my dad, I realized how short life is, how quickly things can change, and I miss being near them." She looked at me nervously. "But I know you love New York. I know your whole career is based here." "My career is writing books," I said. "I can do that from anywhere. If you want to move to Portland, we'll move to Portland." Her face lit up. "Really? You'd do that?" "I'd do anything for you," I said simply. "Besides, a change might be good. A fresh start." We spent the next few months preparing for the move. I finished the book I'd been working on, a thriller about social media, mob families, and the cost of defending someone you love. My publisher was thrilled. Portia negotiated a deal that made the advance from my last book look modest. Romina reached out to Thessaly through her lawyer, asking if they could talk. Thessaly agonized over the decision for days before finally agreeing to meet her at a coffee shop in Manhattan. I didn't go with her. This was something she needed to do alone. When she came home 3 hours later, her eyes were red from crying, but she was smiling. "How did it go?" I asked. "It was good," she said. "Hard, but good." She apologized. Really apologized. Not just for the Instagram post, but for months of bullying behavior. She explained about her father, about feeling trapped, about taking her frustrations out on me because I seemed to have everything she wanted. A real marriage, genuine happiness, freedom from her family's control. "Do you believe her?" I asked. "I think so," Thessaly said. "I'm not sure we'll ever be friends. There's too much history, too much hurt, but maybe we can be at peace with each other. Maybe that's enough." "Maybe that's better than enough," I suggested. On our last night in Brooklyn, we sat on our apartment floor surrounded by moving boxes and looked out at the city lights. "Do you regret it?" Thessaly asked. "Any of it?" I thought about the question, the chaos, the fear, the danger, my father-in-law's heart attack, the federal investigation, the media circus, the weeks of not knowing if our marriage would survive. "I regret how things happened," I said finally. "I regret that people got hurt. I regret that we went through hell. But I don't regret defending you. I don't regret loving you enough to fight for you, even if I fought stupidly." Thessaly leaned her head on my shoulder. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" The best-selling author and the unemployed marketing executive fleeing New York in disgrace. "Fleeing in triumph, actually," I corrected. "We helped take down a crime family. We survived a mob hit. We got each other back. I'd say we're doing pretty well." "When you put it that way," she laughed. "Although I wouldn't say I'm unemployed. I prefer between opportunities." "Starting a new job in 2 months isn't unemployed," I agreed. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city that had been our home, the place where we'd met and fallen in love and built a life together. "Hey, Merrick," Thessaly said softly. "Yeah? Thank you for being my nobody." I smiled and kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for wasting your life with me." 6 months later, we were settled in Portland. Thessaly was thriving in her new job. building a New York office from the ground up with a team that valued her expertise and treated her with respect. My book was climbing the bestseller lists. We'd found a house with a view of the mountains and a yard big enough for the dog Thessaly had always wanted. Life was quiet, normal, boring in the best possible way. One evening, I was scrolling through Instagram. I'd started using it again, but only to post pictures of our dog and Pacific Northwest scenery, when I saw that Romina had posted something new. It was a photo of her at a coffee shop, laptop open, looking genuinely peaceful. The caption read, "Starting fresh, building something real, learning that the best version of yourself isn't the one other people see on social media. It's the one you see in the mirror when no one's watching. Grateful for second chances and the strength to take them. New beginnings. Growth mindset. Actually going somewhere." I showed it to Thessaly, who read it and smiled. Good for her. Should I comment? I asked. What would you say? I thought about it for a moment, then typed, "We're all just trying to figure it out. Good luck with your journey." I hit send before I could overthink it. A few minutes later, Romina replied, "Thank you, and I'm sorry, for everything." Thessaly read the exchange over my shoulder. "That's nice. Closure." "Is it enough?" I asked. "It's a start," she said. "Sometimes that's all you can ask for." That night, lying in bed in our new house, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a different city, Thessaly turned to me. "Do you know what I realized?" she said. "What?" "You didn't waste my life. You saved it. Before you, I was so caught up in trying to prove myself, trying to be successful, trying to meet everyone else's expectations. And then you showed me that none of that matters as much as being genuinely happy, being genuinely loved." "You saved mine too," I said. "You saw me as just Merrick. Not Merrick Holloway, the author. Just me. That's a gift." She kissed me. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" "Better than okay," I promised. "We're going to be great." And somehow, despite everything we'd been through, or maybe because of it, I actually believed it. The story of how a single Instagram comment brought down a crime family and nearly destroyed my marriage became something we told at dinner parties, laughing at the absurdity of it all, marveling at how we'd survived. But the real story, the one we kept private, was simpler and more profound. It was about two people who loved each other enough to fight through hell and come out the other side stronger. It was about learning that defending someone doesn't always mean making grand public gestures. Sometimes it means having the hard conversations, doing the difficult work, and choosing each other every single day, even when it's not easy. My wife's coworker had posted that she was wasting her life with a nobody like me. I'd commented from my verified account to defend her. And in the chaos that followed, we'd discovered something more valuable than fame or success or public vindication. We'd discovered that we were enough for each other, that being somebody's everything mattered more than being everybody's somebody. That, in the end, was worth fighting for, even if it meant burning down the world to prove it.